Welcome, new and old friends. My name is 242, and tonight I have 4 tales for you this spooky, scary Sunday. The first is about a woman who needs some advice about her fiancé. The second is about a 10-year-old girl who just wants to do whatever she pleases. The third is about another child who almost got kidnapped. And last, I have a tale about a visitor coming by very late at night. Make sure you're safe before you sit back and listen to these chilling tales. I, a 24 female, think my fiancé, 27 male, has a crush on my sister, 26. Any advice? I'll get straight to it. I think my fiancé has a thing for my sister. We're not twins. She is 17 months older than me. But we look a lot alike. She's always looked better than me, though. Skinnier, nicer skin, bigger rack. You know, the typical gifts the older sister gets. I've always hated her for it. I mean, she wasn't a bad person. She was always that happy-go-lucky type who tried to make me smile. But that made me hate her more. I could never measure up, couldn't get the same grades, couldn't fit into the same clothes, even when she tried to include me in her friends group. I knew she was just doing it to try to be the bigger person, which I just hated. I have a serious self-image issue, if you can't tell. Aaron was the first thing that was, mine. Unequivocally, absolutely mine. I met him after moving away for school. I never even considered telling my parents about him. Mom and Dad wouldn't care anyways. All they ever talked about was the golden girl, Amy, blah, blah, blah. Like no one else mattered, even when I was in the same room. Aaron never met my family, and I liked it that way. I liked who I was with him. He was cute, he was smart, he was sexy, and he made me laugh. He made me happy. He said yes when I proposed after a long, soppy night. And it made me feel like I'd finally done it. I finally came out of Amy's shadow. I was more to people than just Amy Bradford's little sister. So, I wasn't thrilled when he surprised me with plane tickets home to see my folks. It's a chance to make peace with the past, he said. To show them you've survived despite them. I liked the way he put it. But I still didn't want to go. So, of course, he fell in love with her the minute we walked through that door. I mean, he gasped when he saw her, then tried to pretend he didn't, like my parents and I didn't even exist. He kept staring at her throughout the dinner, just sneaking looks when he thought I wouldn't see. But I saw him. Even when my dad was doing the dad thing and interrogating him about his goal and education and stuff, Aaron kept staring at her. Even that night, while we were in bed, I tried to get something started and he just turned me down flat and rolled away. I think I heard him cry later that night. I'm sure he wishes he was with her instead of the ugly duckling sister. It ticks me off so much. I mean, what else can I do? I've already carved her face off. She is still alive. Don't be weird. I mean, even my parents have gotten over it. I just want people to see me. What do you guys think? The 10-year-old psychopath. The summer after I graduated college, I was living in a house in Berkeley with a few PhD students. It wasn't the best neighborhood, but it wasn't the worst either. There were a few families living in the neighborhood, including the people in the house next door. It seemed like a reasonably nice 2-story house, but on several occasions there were police cars and/or an ambulance outside of the house. We never really questioned why, as police cars weren't a rare sight in the area, and we only ever saw a young girl and her mom in the house, so there was nothing overly abnormal or concerning. One afternoon, my roommates and I had just finished smoking a joint in our backyard when we heard a knock at the door. I opened it and it was the mother from next door. I was a bit taken aback, and even more so when she says, "Hi, I want to ask you guys something. I really don't want to have to call the police." I'm thinking she must have seen and or smelled us smoking weed. And while it was Berkeley, it technically hadn't been legalized yet. So I'm thinking we'll need to apologize and talk our way out of trouble. But then I noticed the woman was visibly shaking. She was clearly terrified and said, "I don't know what to do. I'm having a situation with my daughter, and I really just need another adult to be there." My roommate Sean and I immediately agreed to go with her while the other roommates look on. Incredibly confused by whatever the heck is going on, this mother is asking some stone students to be adults. She must be truly desperate for help. Sean and I will walk over there with her, and she explains that her daughter has some issues, which are currently manifesting as her staying on the roof of the house, threatening to drop her mom's work computer off the edge, or to jump herself. Wow, stuff just got super real. Sure enough, we walk up the driveway to the house, and there is this kid standing on the roof of their 2-story home, dangling a MacBook Pro over the side. She is saying in a disturbing, sing-song voice, "Look, Mommy, no hands. No hands, Mommy. No hands." Sean and I immediately make eye contact. We are both creeped the fudge out. This is not a normal kid. The way she is speaking reminds me of the twins from The Shining. She is not crying and doesn't seem remotely distressed. On the contrary, it appears she's enjoying this torment of her mother, like it's some kind of sick game to her. The mom starts to explain to us that her daughter has had issues like this for many years. She has a psychiatrist and a therapist, and the mother has called both. They recommend calling the police, but the mom has been through this quite a few times before and doesn't want her child to go through the ordeal of being restrained and taken to the hospital yet again. She is frightened and exhausted and doesn't know what to do, so I just start talking to the kid. I tell her how I used to love climbing the roof of my house, and now I'm a rock climber, and I bet she would love that too, because it is so much safer than climbing around the edge of the roof if you make sure to use the proper gear and safety precautions, and the fact that she is unsafe right now is really scaring her mom. I told her if she comes down, I'd be happy to talk to her more about climbing, as well as show her the pet gecko we have that literally climbs up the walls. I'm just pulling things out of my butt at this point. I have no idea what to say or how to mediate the situation like this. I'm just trying to diffuse the tension and get her to calm down. She is flat out ignoring me at first. Continues to taunt her mom, but eventually she seems to get bored and or irritated with my attempts to engage her. Turns around and climbs back towards the window where she got out onto the roof. She runs down the stairs and out to meet us, then says in the same weird sing-songy fake "come play with us Danny" voice, "I dropped your computer on the roof and now it's broken. I'm sorry, Mommy. Do you forgive me?" There was zero remorse whatsoever in her voice. It sounded so disturbing and manipulative. I was blown away that it was coming from a 10-year-old girl and not some demon child from a horror movie. The mother is still shaking and just looks overwhelmed. So I offer to go up and get the computer from the roof. She agrees and escorts me through the house, up the stairs with her daughter trailing behind. It appears to be a perfectly normal, well-maintained middle-class home. The girl is clearly irritated with me spoiling her game and repeatedly orders me to leave. I ignore her, climb out the window and onto the roof, and the laptop is sitting by the gutter, seemingly unscratched. I climb back through and hand it to the mother. At this point, the girl realizes her bluff was called and skips off to her room. Mom proceeds to explain to me that the whole thing was triggered by her changing the password to her laptop after the girl logged into it, stole her mom's credit card, and ordered over $2,000 worth of stuff. This girl is freaking 10 years old. She has been pulling stuff like this her entire life, and no one understands why. They had to move the girl's younger sibling into a separate apartment with her father because they were afraid she would hurt him. The mom was crying at this point, saying they really are tried their best to get her the help she needs and they just are at their wits' end. I did my best to reassure her, give her my phone number, and told her to contact me if she needed help in the future. Sean and I noped the fudge out of there after that and went back to our home. She never contacted me and we moved out a few months later. Almost kidnapped. So, looking into my past, I realized I've had a few stories that could fit into the subreddit. This is one I think about a lot and how my life could have changed in a split-second decision so easily. At the time, I was quite young, maybe 6 or 7 years old, but I still remember it so perfectly. I was in central London for the day with my family, and it was getting to the evening, so we had begun heading home. We don't live too far out of central London, so we were just going to get a taxi to the nearest train station and head back from there. Being so young, inexperienced with the world, and plain stupid, when we got out of the taxi at the train station, I thought it was custom to wave goodbye to the taxi driver as they drove off. Yeah, stupid. So, after I finished waving goodbye to the complete stranger of a taxi driver, I turned around and saw my family had completely gone. Vanished out of thin air. I was so young I had no idea what had just happened. They just suddenly weren't anywhere to be seen. Being a short kid, everyone was like a giant at that age, and it was terrifying. At the moment, everything I had learned about stranger danger completely went out the window, and it no longer mattered. I was just terrified. So I remember choosing to sit in the middle of the pavement and do the only thing I knew how to, and cried, hoping my parents would soon find me.
Are you okay?
I looked up to the side and saw a man sat on a bench next to me, but he sat in a way where his bum was on the backest bit and his feet were on the seat, making him completely tower over me. I remember the image of him so clearly. I've lost my family.
Let me help you find them.
I can't remember the exact conversation very well, except for the next thing he said.
I think I saw them go this way. Follow me.
That line has stuck with me ever since. He stood up and took hold of my hand and started leading me down the road. Completely oblivious and just glad that I had an adult with me now, I just calmly went with him. Just as he's about to lead me around a corner, I heard a voice call my name. My brother, who is only 2 years older than me, had come running out of the train station and seen me just before I was about to completely disappear out of sight around another road in London. A few seconds later, and there would be no way they would have seen me. My parents followed and quickly ran to and grabbed me away from the man, making sure I was okay. I don't remember what happened to the man after that. Part of my memory says he ran away quickly after my family got me. Another part tells me that he stayed and explained to my parents his course of events. None of us really remember. I just know that I'm so lucky I didn't go around that corner with him. I always think how different my life could have been if I did. Thinking about it, the station entrance was only a few meters from where I sat down to cry. It wasn't that busy. The man must have seen my family go into the station, but that's one thing I luckily will never know the answer to. A late-night visitor terrifies us. My husband and I live in a very rural area. It is known as a hollower where we're from. For those who don't know, a hollower is a hollow or a road that runs along a creek in a valley between two mountains. Our nearest neighbor is about 100 yards away on the one side, and through wooded area on the other. The way our house is laid out, if you drive up our hill and park, you will come to our back door. The front door faces the road, but no one ever knocks on our front door. One night, a couple years ago, I decided to go to bed a little earlier than my husband. He stayed up playing video games in the living room, and I had been asleep for a couple hours when my husband burst through the door of the bedroom, freaking out. He's mumbling and rambling in a desperate whisper. He has his phone in his hand, and I can just make out the light shine on his face. I'm so out of it at first, I can't make sense of what he's saying. I'm lying there for a second, and then suddenly I hear him clearly whisper,
"Eddie's trying to break down the door."
I sat bolt upright in my bed, asking what on earth is he talking about. He shushes me, telling me to whisper, and says he has called 911. I glare at the clock, and it's 3 a.m. I reach to turn on the light, and he loudly whispers,
"No!"
He gets through to 911 and tells them we need assistance at our address. I catch a few details, but my head is spinning. After he gets off the phone with them, he tells me what has happened. It was late, and he was still up playing a game, when suddenly he heard heavy footsteps on the porch. He paused his game to listen, and then there was a knock. Another knock. And then repetitive beating on the door. He could hear a man's voice, but could not make out what he was saying. Instead of opening the door, he decided to walk out the back and around to the front of the house to see who it was. He thought it could possibly be our older neighbor needing help with his wife. So he walked out the back door and around to the front to see a large man dressed in all black, carrying a duffel bag. At this point, the man is pounding on the door so hard, it looks like he was trying to break it in. My husband waits for a second, and then asks the guy if he needs help or something. The man apparently didn't realize that my husband was behind him because he starts yelling into the door,
"Just let me in and I won't hurt you."
At this point, my husband decides no more questions are necessary. He runs back into the house and locks the door, turns out the lights in the kitchen, and bursts into the bedroom to call 911 and to wake me up. After he calls 911, we wait huddled in darkness for 40 minutes for a policeman to show up at our house. 40 minutes. His excuse? Small town. No one was on duty. He had been asleep. It was 3 a.m. after all. The policeman doesn't even get out of his car either. He just sits there and spotlights the house from our driveway as my husband goes outside to tell him the story and describe what he could of the man. The cop leaves. My husband comes back in and we sit in darkness of our bedroom, terrified until daybreak, wondering who that guy was and what he was going to do with us if he did get in. With that, we're at the end of our video. I hope you have some advice for that poor woman. I mean, 42 has taken some faces. It's not that weird. Tell me what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, I want you to hit that like button and make sure it feels it. Make sure you subscribe and turn that bell to all notifications so when my next video is up, you know. October is going to be a fun month for the chills, my friends. So come back this Thursday for our day stories. Good night, my friends.